When humans get pissed off, even the most battle-hardened alien warriors shit their pants. Peter Campbell, grizzled ex-Special Forces turned mercenary, sat alone in a seedy station bar. He downed another whiskey, trying to drown the memories of his botched op that got his team killed. A hooded figure slid into the booth. "Campbell, I'm Corvus, Nausicaan High Command. We need your help." Peter glared. "I don't do that shit anymore. We're losing a war against the Zorgans. Ruthless fucks. We need elite human mercs to infiltrate their base and steal codes for a planet-killer weapon pointed at our homeworld. You'd lead a small team, in and out." "Not interested." Corvus leaned in. "They're abducting humans, experimenting on them. Proxima Centauri 7 colony went dark. Suspicious, right? That's where your ex and kid lived." Peter stiffened, rage simmering. "We'll give you advanced weapons, a cloaked ship." Corvus slid a credit chit across the table. 50 million half now. Images of his daughter's face flashed through Peter's mind. He snatched the chit. "I'll take the job. And if the Zorgons touched my family, I'll rip their fucking hearts out." Corvus nodded grimly. Peter tossed back his drink and stood. Time to show the aliens what happens when you push humans too far. Peter wasted no time. He put out a call on the Merc channels, and within a day he had his team. There was Raven, a lanky woman who could shoot the balls off a gnat at 2 clicks. Brick, a slab of muscle who loved nothing more than making shit explode. And Shrike, a wiry hacker who boasted she could slip into any system undetected. They met up on Peter's ship, a sleek vessel called the Raven's Claw, and blasted off for the coordinates Corvus provided, a miserable dustball of a moon where the Zorgons had set up shop. Peter put them through their paces on the way, running drill after drill, strategizing for every scenario. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Brick started running his mouth, making snide comments about Peter's leadership. "Didn't your last op go tits up? Lost your whole squad, right?" Peter gritted his teeth. "You focus on your job and let me worry about mine." Shrike, ever curious, tried to dig up the dirt on that failed mission, but she hit a wall of redacted files and classified stamps at every turn. When Peter caught her prying, he slammed his fist on the console. "Leave it the fuck alone, Shrike, I won't tell you twice." She put her hands up in mock surrender, but the gleam in her eye said she wasn't done looking. When they made planetfall, Corvus's promised gear was waiting. State-of-the-art stealth suits that shimmered and disappeared against the ashen landscape. Infiltrating the base was almost too easy, until a hidden sensor tripped and all hell broke loose. Alarms blared as Zorgan troops poured out, plasma rifles blazing. They were pinned down, taking heavy fire. A shot punched through Brick's suit, leaving him writhing and bleeding. "Raven," Peter shouted over the chaos, "get him back to the ship. We'll handle it from here." Raven nodded curtly, slinging Brick over her shoulder and disappearing into the fray. Peter and Shrike pushed forward, cutting a path to the control room in a hail of blood and bullets. Shrike jacked into the system, her fingers flying over the keys as she hacked through the layers of security. But something fought back. The Zorgon AI attacked, vicious and relentless, sending feedback screaming down her neural link. She cried out, convulsing, nearly pulling the plug. And for a moment Peter was back there, back in that blood-soaked valley, the screams of his team ringing in his ears as they died around him. He froze, lost in the flashback, finger slack on the trigger. "Peter!" Shrike's shout snapped him back to the present. "I need you!" He shook it off and laid down covering fire, giving her the precious seconds she needed. She broke through, snatching the codes just as a behemoth of metal smashed into the room, a hulking Zorgan warbot, all guns and armor. It zeroed in on them and opened up, the room disintegrating under its barrage. Peter shoved Shrike down and took the brunt of it, his suit smoking and sparking where the shots hit. He hauled her up and shoved her towards the door. "Go!" he roared. "Get the codes back to the ship." "But—" "That's an order, Shrike. I'll buy you time." She hesitated for a split second, then turned and ran. Peter squared up against the bot, a desperate man with nothing to lose. He triggered his last resort, An experimental EMP grenade Corvus had slipped him. As the bot bore down on him, he armed it and charged, a wordless battle cry ripping from his throat. If this was to be his last stand, he'd make it a damn good one. Peter jammed the grenade between the bot's mandibles and dove to the side, hitting the ground hard as the explosion ripped through the room. Shrapnel tore into his flesh, and the shockwaves slammed him against the wall. Pain erupted across his body, and then darkness took him. He came to with a splitting headache, sprawled on a cold metal floor. Sitting up with a groan, he found himself in a cramped cell, stripped of his weapons and armor. The cell door hissed open, and a smug Zorgon strutted in, flanked by 2 guards. He was a big bastard, with cruel eyes and a jagged scar across his face. "I am Commander Zoraks," he sneered. "Your little heist caused quite a stir, human. Pity you weren't more careful." Peter glared at him. "Where's my team?" Zoraks chuckled. "The scrawny one with the code slipped away. But we have the others, not that it matters. The Norsicans already paid your ransom. You're the only one they want." "Fuck you," Peter spat. "What about the rest of my team?" "Useless to us, and to your employer, it seems. They've been written off." Zoraks leaned in close, mandibles clicking. "You're their only hope of stopping our weapon now." Rage boiled up in Peter's gut. He lunged forward, slamming his forehead into Zoraks's face. As the Zorgon reeled back, Peter seized one of his mandibles in his teeth and bit down hard, tearing it free with a spray of blood. Zoraks howled in pain as Peter spat the mandible at his feet, grinning through crimson-stained teeth. "Choke on it, you son of a bitch!" The guards fell on him, pummeling him with vicious blows until the world went black again. When Peter next woke, he was strapped to a medical bed on Corvus's ship, head pounding. Corvus loomed over him, looking grim. "Where's the rest of my team?" Peter demanded, straining against the restraints. "Still in Zorgon custody." Corvus shook his head. "We can't risk a rescue mission right now. It's too dangerous." "The hell with that," Peter snarled. "We can't leave them behind." "You and those codes are our priority," Corvus said firmly. "The others, I'll try to negotiate for their release later, after we've dealt with this weapon." Peter wanted to argue, to fight, but he forced himself to take a breath, to think. "Fine," he ground out. "I understand." Corvus looked relieved. He clasped Peter's shoulder. "Get some rest. We'll need you at full strength." But rest was the last thing on Peter's mind. As soon as he was alone, he slipped his restraints and crept through the ship, stealing a shuttle. He was just firing up the engines when Raven and Shrike burst in, weapons ready. "Thought you could leave without us?" Raven smirked as they strapped in beside him. Shrike punched his arm. "Like we'd let you have all the fun." Peter grinned fiercely as they rocketed away from the ship. He'd never been so glad to have a team at his back. They slipped back onto the Zorgon base like shadows. Shrike worked her magic, hacking systems and setting off distractions to clear their path. Raven watched their backs, picking off any guards who got too close. "Hand Peter." Peter carved a path of destruction to the detention block, a whirlwind of blades and fury. This time he wouldn't fail. This time he wouldn't leave anyone behind. They found Brick in the deepest cell, bruised and bloodied but alive. Peter nearly sagged with relief as they broke him out. "Took you long enough?" Brick rasped, leaning heavily on Raven. "Shut up," Peter said, but there was no heat in it. He met each of their eyes in turn. "Listen up. There's something you need to know about that mission I fucked up." The words tasted like ash in his mouth, but he forced them out. The truth at long last. The ugly, brutal truth of what happened in that blood-soaked valley. Of the choices he made. The people he lost. "Never again," he finished hoarsely. "I won't leave anyone behind, not ever again." Raven laid a hand on his arm, her eyes fierce. "Damn straight, we're in this together." "Damn right we are," Brick growled. Shrike nodded sharply. "Let's get the hell out of here." They turned to go, battered but unbroken. A team forged in blood and fire. And then the alarms began to blare. The alarm screamed through the detention block as Peter and his team raced for the exit. But before they could reach it, every screen in the corridor flickered to life. Zolax's scarred visage leered down at them, a cruel smile twisting his mangled face. "Going somewhere?" He stepped aside, revealing a beaten and bloodied Corvus bound to a chair behind him. "I believe you have something I want." Peter's blood ran cold. He stepped forward, hands balling into fists. "Let him go, Zolax. This is between you and me." "Is it now?" Zolax chuckled darkly. "Hand over the codes, and your friend here might live to see another day." Peter hesitated, his mind racing. The mission or Corvus, and could he really choose? But Corvus, even through his swollen eyes, fixed Peter with a fierce stare. "Don't you dare, Campbell," he growled, his voice rough with pain. "Get those codes out of here. That's an order." "Corvus!" "Forget about me, damn it." Corvus strained against his bonds. "Complete the mission. Go." And in that moment, the pieces fell into place. The horrible, sickening truth. Corvus had planned this. He'd known the Zorgons would never honor a deal, knew that his own life would be the price of stopping that weapon. Bile rose in Peter's throat. He met Corvus's eyes one last time, saw the grim resolve there, the acceptance. With a wordless snarl, Peter raised his rifle and blasted the monitor to sparking shards. "You heard the man," he said hoarsely, turning to his team. "We're getting the hell out of here." They burst into the hangar, alarms blaring and lights flashing. Zorgon troops poured in from every direction, plasma bolts sizzling past them. Peter and Raven laid down a blistering cover fire as Brick and Shrike sprinted for the nearest shuttle. "Brick, get that thing fired up," Peter shouted over the chaos. "Shrike, slice the door controls, lock 'em out." They piled into the shuttle, Brick's hands flying over the unfamiliar controls. The engines roared to life just as a searing bolt punched through the windshield, missing Brick's head by inches. "Fuck! Can you fly this thing?" Raven yelled. "Watch me!" Brick slammed the thrusters forward, and the shuttle blasted out of the hangar, G-forces slamming them back in their seats. But their escape was short-lived. A swarm of attack drones boiled out of the base like angry hornets, cannons spitting fire. The shuttle shuddered as hits sparked across its shields. "Raven, get on the guns," Peter barked, wrestling with the controls. "Shrike, divert everything you can to the engines. We gotta outrun 'em." Raven leapt into the gunner's seat, the turret swiveling to track the drones. Shrike's fingers danced over the computer, rerouting power from every non-critical system. Peter wrenched them into a stomach-churning dive, straight into the dense asteroid belt ringing the moon. The drones pursued doggedly, their superior numbers slowly overwhelming the shuttle's defenses. "We can't take much more of this," Raven called, her gun hammering non-stop. Peter gritted his teeth, his mind racing. The asteroids. He punched up a scan, analyzing their composition. A fierce grin split his face. "Brick, rig me up a bomb now." "With what?" "Anything, just do it." As Brick frantically cobbled together an explosive device, Peter pushed them deeper into the belt, the densest part, choked with tumbling rocks. And something else, something invisible but incredibly volatile. "Taibana gas," he said grimly. "This whole belt is a goddamn minefield." Understanding dawned on the others' faces. Brick shoved a jury-rigged bomb into Peter's hands, little more than a tangled mass of wires and glowing power cells. "That's all I got, boss. Make it count." Peter nodded sharply. He marked the biggest asteroid he could find, a massive chunk of iron and nickel. "Get ready to punch it on my mark." He aimed the shuttle straight at the asteroid, the drones swarming hungrily behind them. At the last possible second, he slammed the bomb into the release hatch. "Now!" Brick hit the accelerator just as Peter shot the bomb out behind them. It tumbled end over end, the drones paying it no mind as they sought their prey. The bomb hit the asteroid, and the belt ignited. A cataclysmic fireball erupted, a sun born in an instant. The Taibana gas went up in a chain reaction, the shockwave hurling the shuttle end over end. Alarms screamed and sparks burst from overloaded consoles. But the drones... The drones were incinerated instantly, reduced to glowing cinders. Panting, bleeding, Peter hauled them out of the inferno and into the clear. They were battered, their craft barely holding together, but they were alive. "Set course for the Nausicaan homeworld," he said hoarsely. "We've got a weapon to stop." Later, in the shuttle's tiny medbay, Shrike carefully dressed Peter's wounds. Her hands were gentle, a stark contrast to her usual barbs and jabs. "Do you really know how to show a girl a good time?" she murmured, smoothing a bandage over his ribs. Peter huffed a laugh, then winced. "Guess I'm just a hopeless romantic." They fell silent for a moment, the weight of everything hanging between them. Then Peter sighed, long and low. "That last mission I fucked up. The one that's had me twisted up in knots." Shrike paused, her eyes searching his face. "You don't have to." "I want to." Peter met her gaze squarely. "You all deserve to know." And so in halting words he began to speak. Of the Black Vortex mission, the choices he made, the friends he lost, the guilt he'd carried, a black hole in his heart, ever since. He didn't realize Brick and Raven were listening in over the ship-wide comm. Not until he finished and heard Brick's gruff voice, thick with emotion. "Boss, ain't none of that on you, you hear me? Not a goddamn bit." "He's right," Raven chimed in. "You did everything you could, more than anyone else would." Peter closed his eyes, letting their words wash over him. For the first time in a long, long time, he felt a glimmer of something like peace. "Thanks," he said quietly. "All of you, thanks." Shrike squeezed his hand, her calluses rough against his skin. "We're with you, Peter. No matter what, that's a promise." And as the shuttle hurtled through the void, the four humans bound by blood and fire, Peter let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still hope. As the Raven's Claw tore out of hyperspace, the Nausicaan homeworld filled the viewscreen. But instead of a serene blue marble, they saw a planet under siege. Zorgon warships swarmed like locusts, pummeling the world with a relentless barrage of plasma fire. And there, looming above it all, was the planet killer. "Jesus Christ," Raven breathed. "We're too late." "No," Peter growled. "Not yet." He leaned forward, eyes locked on the monstrosity. "That thing's not firing. We've still got a chance." Shrike's fingers flew over her console. Weapons still charging, but not for long. ETA to firing? Fuck, less than 10 minutes. Peter's jaw clenched. "Then we've got no choice. I'm going in." Brick stared at him. "Into that? It's suicide." "If I don't input those codes directly, that weapon fires. Game over." Peter met each of their eyes. "Raven, get us in close. Shrike, hack through their defenses. Brick, I need you on the guns. Clear me a path." They nodded grimly, a silent acknowledgement of the stakes. Raven punched the accelerator, threading the shuttle through the chaos. Zorgon fighters screamed past, cannons blazing. Brick returned fire, the shuttle's guns barking. Shrike's brow furrowed in concentration, her mental link to the ship's computer glowing. "I'm in their systems, shutting down point defenses, now." A path opened up, the Zorgon fire slackening. Peter stood, grabbing his helmet. "This is as close as we're going to get. I'm ejecting." "Peter," Raven started. He gripped her shoulder. "I'll be back, I promise." He sealed his helmet, stepped into the airlock, and jumped. The void embraced him, cold and merciless. His suit's thrusters flared, propelling him towards the planet killer. Plasma bolts zipped past, too close for comfort. Brick's voice crackled over the comm. "Heads up, boss. Fighter, 2 o'clock high." Peter juked left, narrowly avoiding a searing lance of energy. The fighter roared past and swung around for another pass. Peter snarled, raising his rifle. The range was long, the shot near impossible. He fired. The bolt struck home, piercing the cockpit. The fighter spiraled away, trailing smoke. "Fuck yeah," Brick whooped. "Did you see that shit?" "Save it for the cantina," Peter grunted. "I'm almost to the hull." He slammed into the planet killer, mag boots locking on. A hatch loomed before him, sealed tight. Peter primed a breaching charge and slapped it on, ducking as the shaped blast tore it open. He plunged inside, rifle up. Red emergency lights pulsed, klaxons blaring. Zorgon crew raced to battle stations. Peter cut them down with ruthless efficiency, fighting his way to the control room. The door was locked, reinforced. Peter hammered the controls, cursing. It didn't budge. He stepped back, sighting down his rifle. A searing bolt struck his shoulder from behind, spinning him around. His armor smoked, the metal scorched. Zolax stood there, his face a ruin of burnt flesh, one eye a gaping socket, but the other blazed with hate. "You," he hissed, "I will end you, human filth." He charged, a primal roar tearing from his throat. They crashed together, grappling furiously. Zolax's strength was monstrous, fueled by rage and pain. He pummeled Peter with blow after blow, cracking his helmet, denting his armor. But Peter gave as good as he got. He hammered his fist into Zolax's ruined face, feeling bones crunch. Zolax reeled back, spitting blood and teeth. Peter pressed the attack, unleashing a flurry of strikes. With a final savage blow, he caved in Zolax's skull. The Zorgon crumpled, his remaining eye going dark. Panting, Peter staggered to the control console and froze. It was a smoking ruin, destroyed by a stray shot in their fight. The self-destruct codes were useless now. "Fuck!" he roared, slamming his fist into the wreckage. The planet killer shuddered around him, the weapon powering up. He had minutes, if that. He looked around wildly, desperate for another option, and his gaze fell on the reactor control panel. A terrible, gut-wrenching realization crashed over him. There was only one way to stop this now. With numb fingers, he began the overload sequence. Warning lights flashed, the computer blaring danger. He ignored it all, focusing on his task with single-minded intensity. As the reactor began to destabilize, he opened a comm channel to his team. Static crackled, the signal barely holding. "A Raven brick Shrike," his voice caught. "I'm sorry, I can't, there's no other way." "What are you talking about?" Raven demanded. "Get out of there." "The console's destroyed. I have to—" He swallowed hard. "I have to overload the reactor. It's the only way to stop the weapon." "But that'll kill you," Shrike cried. "I know." Peter closed his eyes. "I'm sorry, I'm so damn sorry, but this is the only way to save the Nausicaans, to save all of you." "No," Brick's shout was anguished. "Don't do this, boss. We'll find another way." "There is no other way." Peter's voice was heavy with regret. "You have to go. Get clear before this thing blows." "We're not leaving you," Raven snarled. "Yes, you are." Peter's tone brooked no argument. "That's an order." Silence, then quietly, brokenly, Shrike. "Aye, Captain." Peter smiled sadly. "It's been an honor. The best damn crew I could have asked for. I'll miss you." He cut the comm before they could respond, before he lost his nerve. The reactor howled, the vibrations rattling his bones. He watched the countdown tick away, bracing himself for the end. And then a miracle. A Nausicaan voice over the comm, tight with urgency. "Shuttle Raven's Claw, we have you on sensors. Prepare for emergency beam-out." The world dissolved in a haze of shimmering light. The transporter beam snatched Raven, Brick, and Shrike to safety an instant before the planet killer ruptured and exploded. On the bridge of the Nausicaan ship, they stumbled from the pad, battered and reeling. They rushed to the viewport, staring out at the expanding fireball that had once been the planet killer. And Peter. No. Raven sank to his knees, all strength fleeing his body. Shrike began to sob, deep, wrenching sounds torn from her very soul. Brick pressed his hand to the viewport, his voice a broken whisper. "Goodbye, Captain." In the terrible, ringing silence that followed, they grieved. For the leader they'd lost, the friend, the man who had brought them together, forged them into something more. Peter Campbell, who had given his life to save them all. But even as they mourned, the seeds of doubt crept in. Had it really ended like this? Could a man like Peter, who had endured so much, survived so much, could he really be gone? A flicker of hope, fragile but stubborn, took root in their hearts. And far beyond the debris field, A battered escape pod tumbled through the void. Inside, Peter stirred, clinging to life by the barest thread. He fumbled for the photo of his team, his family in all but blood. "I'm coming back," he rasped, his voice a thready whisper in the silence of the pod. "I promised." But then a shadow fell across the viewport. An alien ship, vast and strange, loomed above him. A tractor beam snared the pod, drawing it into the gaping maw of the docking bay. The ship jumped to light speed, vanishing into the depths of space. And Peter Campbell, the man who had cheated death, who had saved worlds, his fate was once again a mystery, his story far from over. For now, though, there was only the endless black of space, the glimmer of distant stars, and the promise of a new beginning waiting just beyond the horizon. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.